I'm Kat. Hi,
Hey.
how are you?
That's Kat, my partner.
Yeah.
My kids are all now.
Hello.
Good to see you.
They're out there in the world on their own. No kids of their own yet. Here's Adam. Get him in here.
Oh.
All
Hey.
right. Hey, Adam.
Okay.
Hey.
What do you
Hey,
say,
guys.
Adam?
Oh, another day in paradise.
There you go. That's what we've had. Yeah. So we're waiting
yeah.
for Mariana. And what we can do here is we've got all these fun deals, which puts me here. And then there's all of us. And then I can bring anybody up, that we want to. Like, let's say we want Alex and me. Or I thought that was Alex and me. Let's see. Hey, good work. I guess this is Alex. No? How do we get to 3?
Oh,
there we go. Now we're talking. So if I go Alex now, no? Oh, I see. I went to 2.
damn technology.
Here we go. Let me get a feel for this. Here we go.
Let's see. Wait.
So we're on right now? Okay, we're up. So I guess I better get started. Is it 6:30 yet?
It's 6:25.
All right, good. We'll wait for Mariana.
All right.
Coming through, but I doubt anyone's here. How's everybody doing?
Oh, nothing major going on.
It's freaking insane here in the city. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
Queens is bad.
Yeah.
I'm in Brooklyn right now, and it's my girlfriend's a nurse, and she's been taking care of COVID patients. So since I am asthmatic and high risk, I had to come to Brooklyn to stay with my parents, and it has been weird. It's been not fun.
Oh, man.
It's gonna be tough. Yeah, I would not recommend it, guys. I'm also trying to turn off this fan.
Especially Brooklyn. No,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm from the Bronx. I hate Brooklyn.
Bronx. I'm from the Bronx too.
Are you really? All right.
Yeah.
No.
Queens
I
right here.
I to this day I still get uncomfortable in Brooklyn. When I'm walking around, I just get this itch at my scalp.
See, I don't believe in the Bronx because it's the only borough that is attached to the mainland. It's the only borough with a definitive article before it.
We're the best.
Sure. You go there, it kind of looks like
Staten Island insanity, but but my wife always laughs. We were like a couple years ago. We were at Borough Hall, and she's like, "What the hell's wrong with you? You're being all like on edge." I'm like, "There's a thing about Brooklyn. Growing up, kids used to come up to fight us all the time off the 6 train." So it was like a whole to-do. So to this day in Brooklyn, I'm still prickly, even though Brooklyn's really nice and there's nothing wrong with it. And I've got family out there, but I'm still like very fucking Brooklyn. I just get jacked up.
That's crazy because, like, speaking of someone who's born and bred from Brooklyn, I never went up to the Bronx to fight with anybody.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? That sounds not nice.
No clue, but they did it.
My deal in the Bronx was that, I knew who was going to try to kick my ass in the Bronx, and I could look for them. But in Brooklyn, anybody was capable of doing that. When I was a kid, I didn't set foot there.
You can't read the room. If you can't read the room, Bronx people, when we can't read the room, we're out of our element.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is all new to me.
You grew up in Miami?
I'm from Miami, but I've lived in Queens ever since I moved to New York, so I'm the odd man out.
Look who's here! It's Mariana Evans.
Hey.
Here's all of our guys here.
There you are. It's dark out. I mean, it's bright out there.
What's the YouTube on this? I want to make sure I send the link out to all my followers.
I sent it to you. Can you send that?
I got it.
Kat?
If Kat sent it, I can find it.
Yeah.
I think it's in that last email she sent.
Cool.
Let me send it to her. Oh, she's got it. Okay.
She's got it.
Yeah. She's sending it to you.
Okay.
I guess we should. How are you, Mariana? Good?
Good. How are you?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is lovely. I was outside in the garden today. It was great.
All right.
Where y'all are.
You are a Sooner, right?
Yes, that's where I teach.
Well, I'm a later, so.
I've never been to a football game, so, and that.
Never, not one, or just the Oklahoma?
Oh, just the Oklahoma ones.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like, but I can see the stadium through my office window, and people are real jealous of that.
Are you in your office now or you're home?
No, I'm at home. Haven't seen that.
Everybody's at home except Adam, who's stuck in Brooklyn. But that's your home too, right? Home away.
Yeah, this is what I'm living the house I grew up in the same house my mom grew up in. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
well, I guess I'm gonna formalize this since we're live and everybody can see us.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and just do the. I'm gonna put you guys on the side, and I'm gonna mute you for a little while. And when I bring you up, I'll unmute you. And if we all have something to say, I'll bring everybody up, and we'll all talk for about certain things. Okay, so let's do that. Hello, everybody. How are you from Pandemic Central, New York City? We're here to present to you the very first launch, the initial launch party for The Faking of the President. 19 stories of White House Noir, which is dropping today. Today is the pub date. And this is the book you are seeing right here. And you will have a link to buy it at a Word bookstore, which we were going to be in Jersey City today reading. Oh yeah, us and the three men, and Mariana we brought in from Oklahoma to help us today. So we'll have 4 contributors, 5 including me. I am Peter Carlaftes, right here on the thing. I am the editor and the publisher, and also a contributor to the book. So we're going to talk about this and talk about where we're at right now in the world, and push the book and enjoy ourselves, and have you enjoy the time with us. So I'm going to bring up everybody right now, and I guess I'll bring you up one at a time and introduce you real quickly, and then we'll go to a more serious introduction. So I'm going to bring up Angel Luis Colón. He's in Little Ferry, New Jersey, and there's Angel. And then I'm going to bring up what happened. How did Angel get on here? The whole thing. Let me go back to me, and then I'll bring up Angel. Oh, maybe I can do this. There we go. Oh, no, here's everybody. Okay, I tried. Maybe this was no. There's everybody. So we have Angel next to me. We have Alex Segura right here on the top hand, right or left, whichever way. There he is. It's funny how the that's downtown and that's uptown. It seems wrong. Yeah. And here's Mariana Evans. She's in Oklahoma. I think Washington, Oklahoma. Isn't that? Am I right? I'm going to turn everybody's mute off too, so we can hear everybody. Hello, you're on off mute. And of course, Adam Lance Garcia, who's stuck in Brooklyn, but he lives in Jersey City, 2 blocks from the bookstore we were going to perform at tonight. And I blame him for this whole thing, because I think that the big creator looked down and said, "This guy's got it too easy. We got to make it hard."
Yeah, well, now I don't have to put pants on, so I mean, it's a lot easier for me now.
Yeah, and none of us are wearing pants, I don't think. So that's the one good thing about quarantine, right?
One of the biggest writer secrets.
How's everybody doing? Good?
Good.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right.
With an asterisk?
Yes, with an asterisk.
Yeah, of course. It's a tough time, and we're all here together for A, the book, and B, we started this book for our intense dislike for the Mango Mussolini, or whatever I call him, Boss Tweet, whatever we want to call this guy. We've got to get rid of him, and this book is part of that tool for the resistance. So take a look at this. Of course, we're all on that same team. And if you're not, well, we'll bring you over to our side if you read the book. We've got, there's 5 of us. We were going to be in a bookstore, us 4. Mariana was able to join us, so we had to get some feminine power on this team since we were able to. Otherwise, we would have been 4 guys stuck in Jersey City. We would have had to sing a cappella or something, so we would have been doing like a Broadway play since there aren't any. So why don't we just get started here? We're going to have Angel read part of his story. So I'm going to put our other fellas off to the side here. Oh, that's the three of them. So I guess I have to get me up there, and then Angel, and then me and Angel. No, everybody, what the hell is going on? I had it great. I tried this 30 times, and now I'm just going to get Angel up here. Angel Luis Colón is he's got a story in the book and in the Faking of the President called "Is This Tomorrow?" and it is about Dwight D. Eisenhower, Ike, number 34, the president, and he's going to read the first part of it. And he is a Derringer and Anthony Award nominated writer of 5 books, including his latest novel, Hell Chose Me. And we met in Florida Happens, which was the Boucher Con anthology of 2018, was it?
18.
And he had a story called Muscle Memory in Florida Happens, and that's how we met, and we brought him along to the Faking of the President. So welcome, Angel Luis Colón.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to anybody watching. I know it's a weird time, but this is kind of cool, so we can kind of do something different. So yeah, the story is called "Is This Tomorrow?" It's about Ike. It came out of a story I read a while ago or something. It's actually something I wanted to do for a minute. And the Faking of the President gave me the opportunity to actually write this weird, strange little story. So my opportunity to actually write something very Twilight Zone-y. So I'm going to read you a little bit of it. Looking out over the South White House lawn, Navy Lieutenant William Crowe noticed a pristinely manicured green pockmarked all over with tiny holes. He dug his hands into his pants pockets and then jerked them back out, deciding to cross them behind his back instead as he stiffened his back. "Squirrels?" William asked. President Eisenhower grunted. "Squirrels. Darn things are driving me insane." He held a putter in his hand and pointed at the far end of the green. "This entire patch was installed by the PGA. You understand that? This is where I relax, where I take my mind off the reds and the coloreds. But these squirrels, which Frank and the boys in the Secret Service won't shoot, are going to be the end of me. Imagine that, son. Squirrels. Not an assassin or a bomb, but a rodent." He raised his putter into the air. "They're even stealing my teas. Got poor Daisy riled up beyond belief. I've had to keep her in the kitchen all week, and you've seen that dog. It's no indoor dog." William didn't say he agreed with that assessment for fear of angering the commander-in-chief. They'd explained the situation before he arrived, but Eisenhower insisted on relaying the issue in person. The newly installed putting green was being ransacked by squirrels on the hunt for acorns and other treats. "I swear it got worse once they finished, as if we'd been invaded," the president said. He paced back and forth. William heard Eisenhower wasn't the type to swear, but he could tell the man was on the verge of breaking. His face was flushed, teeth bared. These rodents were driving the man past the edge. He understood the feeling, the weight of the free world on one's shoulders, and these little bastards were pecking away at what little sanity the man had left. "They told me you solved the Starling problem over in Jersey?" Eisenhower continued pacing. He slowly swung his putter in a wide arc. "Used the radio?" William nodded. "Something like that, sir. We found that hearing other birds in distress kept them away. Saved us a big headache. Things were nesting just about everywhere before we implemented the solution. And we haven't heard a peep since then." Eisenhower kicked at a small hole in his green and glowered. "You think you can get something out here? Maybe do the same thing?" "I'll need to talk to some people, but I think we might be able to repeat the process. I have heard of squirrels making noises to warn others of predators. Maybe we can isolate that sound and play it over your putting green here, sir. Keep them away and isolate it to a specific spot on the grounds." "I'd rather we just shoot the things," the president sighed. "Very well. I have meetings with Mr. Falwell. You have free rein to do as you needed to get this job done. Just try to maintain the integrity of the green, please." "Absolutely, sir. We'll get this sorted out immediately." "I certainly hope so," Eisenhower said. I'm going to go insane if this isn't fixed soon." "They ain't making any noise," one of the sergeants tasked with recording the squirrels said as he burst into the office. "We're shaking the cages, making all sorts of ruckus, and not a damn peep." William looked up from his paperwork. "Well, how many did you bring in?" The sergeant shrugged. "Maybe 5. "Get more. I'm sure the president would be all right if we collected them either way. We can set them loose far from the putting green as a preventative measure in case we don't collect the sounds we need." William rubbed his temples. "We'll have to increase efforts to get a usable recording. And maybe I can help." The sergeant crossed his arms. "What else can you possibly do?" There have to be some enhanced methods." William stood and grimaced. "We're not the leaders of the free world because we're bad at getting the results we need when we need them, right? Do what needs to be done. The longer we take, the more likely the president is going to harass the Senate to pass a law requiring the Secret Service to shoot anything that wanders around the lawn on 4 legs. But what if we just kill the damn things? Then we're still doing our jobs, right?" That was cruel. William crossed his arms. "I'm sorry. We're not here to be exterminators, and I'm getting frustrated. Do the best you can." William stood and collected his jacket and hat. He was running late for an appointment and needed to hurry across town. "I'll be back soon," he said. I'm going to jump a little ahead to a little bit of a kicker. "So where did you find this one?" William motioned to the squirrel with the pointed ears in a cage at the left side of the table. The cages were now stacked on top of each other, each housing the same type of gray squirrel. This one, though, was reddish and a little larger than the others. The sergeant on duty looked up from his magazine. "I'm not sure. I think he came in with the original haul." He lifted a notepad and read it. "We haven't tried to get a response from him yet." "Why not?" The sergeant shrugged. "I assume it's an oversight." William stared at the squirrel. It looked at William with fleeting interest before curling up and going to sleep. William slipped on a pair of gloves for bite protection, no telling if the squirrel was rabid, and slowly opened its cage. The squirrel opened its eyes but didn't move. It didn't react to William's touch either. William transferred it into a testing cage with a jerry-rigged recording device attached. The testing cage was purposely narrow and squat to prevent the squirrels from having any room to move. There were a few tiny holes just large enough to fit pencils through. The thought here would be the squirrel's natural desire to move freely, mixed with being bothered by the poking from the pencils, would be enough to elicit an audible response. William set up his furry friend and sat calmly in a cramped space. It watched him intently as he gathered his pencils, and he turned on the recorder. "Test 23, William spoke. "Subject is different species of squirrel than normal kind on White House lawn. I'm hoping this will not be a disqualifying factor, as I do not believe it should make any sounds that would be different than the other subjects." He slid a pencil through a hole and gently prodded the squirrel. "First attempt at aggravation. I'll increase the intensity every 2 tries." The squirrel reacted to the poking by gnawing at the pencil. William maneuvered it out of reach and then tried again. "Come on," he said as he jabbed the pencil in the cage again. "Squeak for me. Let's finish this." He rotated the pencil inside the cell and managed to catch the squirrel below its abdomen, right above its testicles. "But yad," a voice in the room said. William turned to see if anyone was coming over. Seeing nobody, he assumed it was simply someone elsewhere in the building. He poked the squirrel one more time. "But yad!" It was a squirrel. William leaned over and stared at the furry prisoner with wide eyes. Was that Russian? So, is this tomorrow? One of the stories in the Faking the Present. That's all I have right now. Got to buy the rest to read it. All that stuff.
All right, Angel, way to go. Hey, we can't hear your clapping. Let's put on your... I want to hear the clapping. Hey, Angel. Way to go. The Faking of the President, which Crime Reads calls one of the strangest, most exhilarating rides you'll take in Noir this year. So please look into getting a copy from the bookstore, Word Bookstore. The link is available through Facebook and YouTube. So next we're going to bring up Mariana Evans, who I met through, she was recommended by Jim Fusilli, who we did Crime Plus Music and Anthology a few years ago. In fact, we did, that book dropped on October 2016, and you know what happened in November of 2016. So we're kind of hopefully started with that, and we'll be ending with this one come November, right? We want him out of office and back on reality TV. Maybe he'll be on one of those live jail shows. Has anybody watched what are the names of those shows? Do they have a jail show? Don't they have one that was live in jail or something? Yeah, that's where we want him. So Mariana has she's covered Thomas Woodrow Wilson, the 28th president, and her story is All Big Men Are Dreamers. And she has a degree in physics. Can you imagine this? Physics and engineering. And she has a series of books. Faye Longchamp, who lives an exciting life as an archaeologist. And you should read those books of hers. She lives in Oklahoma. She is a teacher of fiction and nonfiction at the University of Oklahoma. And we're going to hear part of her story now. Thank you so much for coming, Mariana.
As you've said, I've always been intrigued by the fact that we know his health was terrible. We know that he had a terrible stroke. We know that his wife was the total did all the intercession between the invalid president and the government. And when it came time to alternate history for this story, I thought, well, what if he'd been married to someone else who perhaps wasn't quite the same as the woman who actually did help save the country? So all big men are dreamers, which comes from a quote from Woodrow Wilson. We grow great by dreams. All big men are dreamers. I cannot deny my pleasure in seeing Mrs. Wilson after being so long parted. She is not my patient, although her husband has been in my care throughout his presidential term. Yet my medical training drives me to assess her health and well-being. A physician is never not a physician. Her silk skirt rustles as she hurries down the White House's center hall to greet me. Doctor, I am so pleased you could join me. The president and I have sorely missed your companionship during our time abroad, especially Woodrow. If any man needs friends in this troubled world, it is my husband. I know, and Clara herself knows, that she understates the case. While I trust that Wilson cares for me as a friend, it was as a physician that he needed me most during his long sojourn in Europe negotiating an end to the World War. I failed him. His health, always precarious, had struck fear in my heart in the months before duty took the two of them away. I had feared the advent of apoplexy at any moment. I knew that if this man crumbled, humanity might well destroy itself. Had I been ambulatory, I could not have been moved from his side. I would have risked apoplexy for myself to keep him alive. Instead, I was unable to travel for the most mortifying of reasons, severe and uncontrollable dysentery and vomiting. My patient, upon whom the world depended, sailed into the Atlantic under the care of a doctor who knew nothing of him beyond my extensive notes, and, of course, the testimony of his loving and solicitous wife. A full day has passed since their return, and I cannot express how anxious I am to see how well the president weathered the journey. Ever mindful of propriety in the company of the elegant Mrs. Wilson, I hesitate to ask after him outright, but she anticipates my desire. My husband is resting after so many days aboard ship, but he has expressed his wish to see you soon. She opens her mouth to say more, then closes it. Ever socially adept, she has managed without words, and with only the hint of a gesture, to convey that all is not right with Woodrow Wilson. Mrs. Wilson, Clara, sees my expression and says, "Let us take our seat in the sitting hall." We are standing at the top of the stairs and must walk away from the bedchamber where I presume Wilson is resting, and away from his adjacent office. Though the world does not know this, Clara has long assisted the president in that office with such tasks as decrypting messages and encrypting their replies. To be truthful, only I know the extent of her involvement in our country's affairs. Several members of the cabinet suspect her of being a meddling wife, but even they would be shocked by her wide-ranging influence. Would you choose something for the gramophone? From this deceptively ordinary question, I surmise that, though we cannot be behind closed doors for propriety's sake, Clara would like to speak without fear of eavesdroppers. My heart quickens in concern for the president. I sink into my accustomed chair, and she pours my tea. Her graceful hands are lovely against the old china. How many times have we met thus, playing an extended game of chess that pits the nation's, and indeed the world's, interests against the well-being of a man we both love? I do not wait for her to slice the cake before I speak. I have watched your trip through newspaper photos. I trust that all is well with him. She deflects my implied question and says, "We were careful with the photographers. They saw him at his best." I saw no photos of the president climbing stairs for far too long, but I was relieved in recent weeks to see him do so again. She wields the cake knife like a Turkish scimitar, dismembering the cake and serving us each a slice. Did you see photos of him eating? They were few. There were days when he was incapable of connecting his utensils with his mouth. When he is in that condition, I must feed him. I take a bite of the cake as if to prove with my fork that I am more of a man than her husband. Am I right to presume that he has been ill again but is improving? She dislikes direct questions. I know this, but still I ask them. His mind is not dependable. You saw in the newspaper how I cling to his side in public. I guide, I suggest. When he is asked a question, I whisper the answer in his ear. Woodrow has not spoken for himself in quite some time. So you have to get the book to find out what's been going on with Woodrow and his wife.
Yay!
Thank you.
All right, let's get everybody up there. All right.
Thank you.
Way to go, Marianne. I hear. Did I read that you were from Hattiesburg, Mississippi? Is that what I'm hearing? A little of that. Is that true?
It's true. I've been gone from Hattiesburg since I was 19, but I guess it sticks. I lived in Florida a long time, but Florida is really not the South, is it?
Well, I don't know if up north is pretty much
I
drove through Hattiesburg once.
Did you?
From I-20 to I-10 to go to New Orleans from Atlanta. So whatever that 58 or 50
59. Yeah.
59. What a memory. This is 20 years ago. 59, and I stopped at a little Crystal Burger. And the South, it's like the White Castle of the South. Yes, I said I wanted to try this. Anyhow, try more by getting the faking of the president. Find out what happens to Woodrow Wilson and his dubious last wife. Find out what he's up to, along with those squirrels of Angel Luis Colón. This is the faking of the president, which Publishers Weekly said many of the 19 speculative stories in this highly entertaining anthology show U.S. presidents behaving badly, some with the same impunity as the current occupant of the White House. So get a copy. You can check out the link to the Word Bookstore and get it there, or you can get it through Three Rooms Press, or buy it at your own outlet, or buy it through your local bookstore. They'll help you. So the faking of the president, we're going to move on to Adam Lance Garcia will be reading next, and he hails from Brooklyn, and he's also stuck in Brooklyn right now, right?
That is very true.
Reading about Andrew Jackson, the 7th president, who had no middle name. He's one of the very few of the presidents who had no middle name. Am I right? I mean, I don't know of any other presidents who didn't have a middle name.
Harry S. Truman only had an S.
Is that true? It was only an S?
I believe that's correct. I'll have to double check on that. Just remember, if it's on the internet, it's true.
Okay, you're right. Definitely. And he's got known for his Green Llama Legacy series and his original graphic novel, Sons of Fire. And he writes for a number of publishers and is working as a full-time television producer. I know that we met through the Obama Inheritance. We met through Gary Phillips and the Obama Inheritance, which you wrote a story, The Continuing Mission, which had both Obama and Joe Biden, right, in a Star Trek setting.
Yes,
and
it was.
So let's hope that we're going to continue that continuing mission with Joe Biden come November 6th. Yeah.
Totally go.
There you go. There you go. So we're going to bring up Adam now, and the rest of us will take a little breather.
Well, while they're all taking a breather, you have to listen to me, and I'm going to be reading from my short story, Andrew Jackson Beats Death. I've always been fascinated by the real-life assassination attempt of Andrew Jackson that failed, and the question is, what happened between the moments the guns misfired and he almost beat the assassin to death? This went through a lot of different variations before the story before the final version, and I'll be reading a small section of it. And I'll let you see what happens. Jackson rounded around a column and almost crashed into a man wearing a large black hooded cloak. "Who the devil are you?" Jackson said to the man standing before him. The man sounded, looking up from his pocket watch. Where the man's face should be was a white skull. Black eyeless sockets stared at Jackson, like twin bottomless pits that Jackson could feel himself falling into. In his left hand was a large sickle, its blade gleaming. There was a part of Jackson that felt he should panic at the sight, but that sensation was overwhelmed by a strange, comforting sensation that felt like a mother's embrace. "I said, who the devil are you?" Jackson repeated through his gritted teeth. The man clapped his pocket watch closed and tucked it away. "Well, I'm not him, if that's any consolation. Though, He cocked his head to the side. The man drew a large leather-bound notebook from his cloak and quickly checked the interior. "Well, I have good news and I have bad news, but depending on how you look at it, it could all be good news." Jackson raised his chin and stamped his cane against the ground. "Are you going to answer my question, you fool, or will I have it to beat it out of you?" The man glanced down at his robes, then gestured to his bony white visage and sickle with a skeletal hand. "Is this not enough?" Jackson raised his cane, brandishing it like a sword. "You dare continue to mock me?" Jackson said, stepping forward, that fire in his core burning brighter and brighter. "Tell me who you are, or I shall use this to beat the life from you." The man in the cloak sighed and shook his head. "I can see you're confused. But seeing as we are on a schedule, let me put your mind at ease and properly introduce myself." The man opened his arms and suddenly seemed to glow from within. The sky darkened, filling with clouds. The man's voice resounded from the heavens, shaking Jackson to his core. "I am Death." Jackson's face screwed in a frown, and as his chin pressed against his throat. "No, you're not," he said, his voice betraying his doubt. "If you are Death, then why am I alive, eh?" Jackson said, defiantly pounding a fist against his chest. "Why do I still breathe? Why can I feel the blood pumping through my—" Jackson stopped himself, realizing that he could not, in fact, feel blood pumping through his veins. When he struck his chest, he had not felt the familiar thunk-thunk behind his ribs. But he could speak, Jackson reasoned. Therefore, life must still fill his humors. He began to take a deep breath, but quickly realized that there was no air in his lungs. "No," he shouted, stamping his cane. "I refuse to believe that I have passed beyond the veil. I am in prime health. I have survived wars. I'm the damn president of the United States. See here, oh Death, if you truly be who you claim, I refuse to accept I have departed the mortal coil." Death raised his right hand and snapped his fingers, the sound like a thunder crack breaking open the sky, and with it the veil that had been draped across his eyes. Like a mist burning in sunlight, Jackson saw shapes appear around him. Those shapes became shadows of men, and soon they became a whole and solid. Familiar faces twisted in shock and surprise, and directly in front of him was a man he did not recognize, a pistol aimed squarely at his own head. This Death aimed a bony finger at a floating metal ball that had suddenly appeared inches from Jackson's face. "Is a bullet that is barreling toward your head, and it was fired," Death gestured to the man holding the gun, "by him." "And who is this, eh?" Jackson snarled the name. He flicked his wrist at the man. He knew he had enemies in Congress and without, but he had never imagined any of his nemesis to be so bold as to arrange his murder. "One of Clay's men? Sent here to assassinate me in broad daylight?" "Does it matter?" Death asked. "You are beyond such concerns, Mr. Jackson. This is a courtesy, the space between seconds, between worlds. Typically, folks die and—" Death snapped his bony fingers again. "They're on the other side, usually waiting in the line to whichever destination they're heading." Death seemed to sigh a sigh of 1,000 years. "Suffice it to say, my job is simple. I am the collector, the shepherd, taking you from here." He gestured to Jackson and then aimed his finger to the ground. "To there." If Jackson understood the implication, he did not make it known to either Death or himself, his classic stubbornness blocking the truth of his ultimate fate from entering his mind. Instead, Jackson stamped his cane against the ground. I refuse to die. As one who has had the task of following your storied career, Mr. Jackson, I do not find this surprising. Believe me, the world would be a whole lot better off if someone had put you in your place," Death said, aiming his distal phalange at Jackson as if he were a scolding teacher. "I am the Grim Reaper. Mine task is not to be nice." Jackson cleared his throat, conceding the point. He eyed the assassin. Jackson had been near death many times. What soldier hadn't? But he had never crossed over. "Tell me, O Death, can we bargain?" he asked, speaking in a much calmer tone, doing his level best to hide the fiery rage that continued to warm his stomach. "Is there a way for me to prevent this ignoble death? Had he muscles, ligaments, and skin covering his skull, Death would be scowling. Sorry, that's not how this works." Jackson's eyes fluttered in disbelief. Surely he could bargain with Death, contest his appointed time. He was, after all, the president of the United States. "Come," Death said, beckoning Jackson on. Jackson frowned, the fire in his stomach growing suddenly dimmer. "Will it hurt?" he asked quietly, sounding suddenly like an insubordinate child realizing too late the price of his disobedience. He glanced at his assassin, wondering for the first time why he, Jackson, had deserved such an ignoble end. "Terribly," Death replied. "The bullet is going to enter your skull, drive into your brain, and by the time it hits the center of your cerebellum, you will be dead. Those will be the most excruciating moments of your life for as long as it lasts. But if it's any comfort, you won't feel it. You're beyond the physical realm. Jackson shook his head. I don't understand. Death reached out his hand. You do not need to. Come, Mr. Jackson. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let you kind of figure out how Jackson gets survives, because obviously he did. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and you should pick up the book right now. Thank you.
All right.
Remember, you can buy this today from clicking the link below to Word, which is right around the corner for me, and it's a really awesome store.
2 blocks away he was.
Literally 2 blocks away. I could see it from my house.
So, this is The Faking of the President, which are 2 friends in the community. Art Taylor said, whether burrowing into archival gaps, forging extraordinary connections between pivotal milestones, or conjuring up wild and wildly entertaining alternative histories, these slyly subversive what-ifs and cutting critiques hit their marks on presidencies past and present. And that's from our friend in D.C., Art Taylor. We'll be down in D.C. virtually on, I think, May 12th. So you'll join us then too, I hope. But let's move on. Our next guest will be Alex Segura. And we met through Florida Happens also, like Angel. He had a story in there, Quarters for the Meter, right?
Yes.
And we have the 7 o'clock scream here in New York right now, so we're going to get Alex up here as quickly as we can. And he's doing JFK and the Camelot complex. So welcome, Alex Segura.
Thank you. It kind of feels like I have a crowd cheering me on, but we're actually cheering on our heroes, the people that are in the front lines, trying to push back on this terrible virus. Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Kat. Thank you to 3 Rooms Press and to Word for having us. This is a little bit of fun during a really crazy time. My story in here is called The Camelot Complex. When Peter reached out to me, my first request was JFK, and I totally figured he would be taken, but thankfully it was open. And you can't really do alternate histories with JFK without touching on a certain event. So I'll try to dance around what we're talking about, but you can figure it out, and I'll read a little bit, and hopefully it's enticing enough to have you pick up the story and the book. The Camelot Complex. Sergeant Guardian Sarah Gunner awoke with a start. She felt the same sinking feeling she got whenever she took on one of these missions. The disorientation, the nausea, the feeling of displacement that she could only liken to that ancient word. What was it? Jet lag? That was it. The sense of not being fully there. At least they'd placed her properly, off to the side, away from the crowds lining the streets. The air was crisp and felt clean, unlike the air she was used to back home, which was often inhaled through a mask's protective filters. No, this was direct. It felt good, pure. She stood up hesitantly, getting used to her body and surroundings. She checked her clothes. It appeared to be a police uniform. She smiled. Larson was good at this stuff, she knew, but on cases like this, he went the extra mile. She checked the badge. Police, Dallas, Texas. She checked her wrist. People kept timed with watches on their wrists, she reminded herself, and let out a quick gasp as she did the quick formula that allowed her to figure out what time it was here in 1963. 12:15 p.m. She walked out of the alley and entered another world. Men, women, and children were crowding the sidewalk and into the streets, waiting. Some waved signs. Excitement and energy crackled in the air. She heard a person nearby mutter, "He's coming. The motorcade's almost here." She had to hustle. If she saw his car, it'd be too late. She scanned the Dallas skyline and found the building easily. It was getting there that would be problematic. Could have dropped me off with more time, Larson, she muttered to herself as she shoved and moved through the crowd. The uniform gave her more leeway. People in this time tended to defer to the police, but not much. Everyone was on some primal high, as if waiting to touch the hand of God. Pretty close, she thought. She saw her reflection again in a nearby store window and almost froze. It was her. She could see her dark eyes, brown hair, and pale complexion, but the attire and demeanor were off. When these trips happened, you were yourself, but you weren't. It was disconcerting, to say the least. It felt like you were driving a rental instead of your own body. She crossed the street, the large warehouse building looming behind her. Her shoulders brushed up against another man. He apologized quickly, not stopping, a long bag slung over his broad shoulder. She looked him over. At first glance, the uniform screamed police, but something stuck with her. The uniform didn't match hers. It seemed off. Slightly worn and not pressed, the colors muted, like a costume. His badge, too, wasn't right. A 5-pointed star, the kind of badge you'd see kids wearing as costumes in past centuries. Well, now, if she was being technical. It was bright, too, as if made with aluminum foil, reflecting the strong Dallas sun. She tried to shrug it off. There was no time. When she turned around again, the man was gone. Your friend was in a hurry, a woman said, scurrying past Sarah. She was carrying a large, bulky camera. A Polaroid? She hadn't prepped enough. Never seen him before, Sarah said, without hesitating. She flinched again. Contact was frowned upon. In and out, Larson had said. Don't talk to anyone. Don't look at anyone. Don't leave a fucking footprint if you can help it. Now, how is that possible? The woman said as she wheeled around, her eyes on Sarah now, squinting as if trying to get a better look at her. She was young, Sarah noticed, with plain, pleasant features. She wore a conservative embroidered dress and seemed energetic and enthusiastic. She smiled and extended her free hand. I'm so sorry, officer. That was rude. It's just, well, she said, hesitating. You don't often see a woman in uniform is all. I mean, I know we've had lady police officers and all, but Sarah sighed. She took her hand, despite knowing how badly she was fucking this up now. My name's Mary Mormon, the woman said. I'm just excited. I've never seen the president or his wife. She's so darn pretty. I feel like a kid on the first day of school. Sarah looked at her watch. 12:20 p.m. Nothing to worry about, ma'am, Sarah said with a nod. Have a great day. Mary Mormon nodded, and she walked as if she wanted to say something more, but thought better of it. Shit, Sarah thought. Larson had been clear about this. What was it he always said? Time travel is like tossing a rock into a lake. No matter how or what you do, it'll cause ripples. The trick is to be gentle and light, so the ripples are minimal. So much for that, she thought. Sarah made it to the other side of the street and nodded to a fellow officer as she entered the book depository. The bulk of the crowd was in front of the building's main entrance, mesmerized by what was to come down the street in a few minutes, if they only knew. She noticed a man shoving a final piece of sandwich into his mouth as he stepped out of the building. Lee around? She asked. Lee, the man responded. Oswald, you mean? That freak? Sarah nodded. She was kicking herself, but she couldn't think of a faster way to get to where she needed to go. Damn those ripples for now. Up on 6 is all I know, the man said. We were all just having some lunch before this motorcade thing, but Lee was too busy. Asked if we could send the elevator back up for him when we was done hanging around, but I'm not sure anyone did. Anyway, he should still be up on 6, doing whatever his strange self wants to be doing right now. Sarah nodded and moved past the burly, lethargic man. She'd done more than enough talking for the day. Thanks so much.
Yeah, all right. Way to go. I got to get you up there. We're coming. Here we are. All right. Alex.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say thank you so much, Alex. We got rushed by the 7 o'clock clap here, but I want to mention that he does have a series, Pete Fernandez. Miami Midnight is the newest, and you've also got something coming called The Archies Meet the B-52s.
Yeah,
and
that came out in April.
You are the co-president of Archie Comics, huh? Look, who thought you'd ever meet that person? Look right there.
Yeah.
Here they are.
He's also got a Star Wars book coming out pretty soon.
Yes.
You would know that, wouldn't you?
I might have pre-ordered it. I didn't realize I was in this anthology with him. I was like, oh my God.
My Poe Dameron book comes out August 4th.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be back out on the streets then.
I mean, it makes sense to have a co-president write a story in this anthology.
Yeah. So this book was also lauded by my friend who's right down the street, hunkered down on about 8 blocks from here, TJ English. He said The Faking of the President is a wild, rollicking ride through the corridors of power, both past and present. So please look this up. Take the link and buy a copy today from Word Bookstore or from your local bookstore, wherever you like to get your books. Buy a copy of The Faking of the President. There are 19 great stories in here. All of them are just individually fantastic, and they all are cohesive for one thing. Goodbye, Orange Menace. So that's what we're up to here. And now you're stuck with the editor, me. I'm going to be the last one to read here, and so I'm going to send my my pals here to whatchamacallit, StreamYard Purgatory as I take over for my last part, and then we'll all say goodbye in a little while. My story is about the dear boss Tweet, so you'll get to meet him, and you'll want to read this to the end because it brings about the end. But one life to give. I'm about to meet my hero in the flesh. Me, Bo Brainer, waiting to pass through White House security, soon to be face to face with Donald J. Trump. I'd come this oh so close twice before he won the election, back in 2001 with the Mint deal, and then my audition for season 5 of The Apprentice, destined both times for major success, but somehow the fates turned against me. Need I say now with spotone.com, the third time will positively be a charm. A tall, pale guard, sealed in dark green camos, beckoned me forth, commanding, "Please remove your keys, wallet, cell, and place them in an orange bowl, and then put your belt and jacket into the plastic bin, sir." To which I quickly complied. He signaled me through the scanner. "Halt!" he barked, left hand up. I can do it. It's tough here. You know, it's like the opposite way. Left hand up. All right. So to which he said, "Halt!" Left hand up, right hand edging toward the holstered gun at his hip. Before I could pass, ass pointing, "What's that thing wrapped there around your neck, sir?" I fluttered, somewhat embarrassed. "It's just a soft brace. I was injured in Mexico not long ago. It's made out of some kind of pliable plastic. Shouldn't set anything off. At least it hasn't. I mean, not in any airport." The guard stared me down and then waved me on through. No alarm sounded. The second guard, seated behind the screen, watched my items pass without incident, and when they arrived where I stood intact, the first guard leveled his left arm, directing, "Please pick up your belongings and situate yourself on that black marble bench under the portrait of Jared and Ivanka. Sir, we'll take you in shortly." As I made my way over to the bench, slipping back on my suit coat, the first guard spoke quietly into his headset. "Another guy with a cast. When was that last one?" "Right, the knee brace. So is this like the same thing?" "Absolutely, no problem." The first guard gave a thumbs up to the second guard. I sat under the very lifelike portrait of the second couple and made sure I had turned off my cell phone. From a command post across the Potomac in Virginia. Command. Obi-Wan, command. Do you read me? From a different location in Washington. Obi-Wan, loud and clear. Command. The bull is in the china shop. Obi-Wan, copy. We're listening. Over. I've been a huge fan of Donald Trump since first reading The Art of the Deal back in high school. I was most impressed with how he was able to put deals together with his cocky attitude. At a time when New York City was bankrupt in the late 70s, he had laid all the groundwork for many hotels and, of course, Trump Tower, which sprang up from an outright never gonna happen. After reading his book, I decided this is what I want to do in life. Make deals, and from those deals, make money. Insomuch that when the opportunity arose, I took a job with a roommate from Penn. Yes, that Penn's family business. The day I graduated in the spring of 2001. Their company had such a great relationship with a food processing plant and packaging company in Taiwan at the time who was ready to manufacture the product, then customize the wrappers. Compliments was the product's name, and the plan was to have those tasty little morsels laid out on every pillow, 8 million hotel rooms around the globe. It's truly hard to fathom how much profit can be generated with a product of this caliber placed everywhere. Consider the Gideon Bible. We had tested the market base for a managed intentional experience, and the numbers were astronomical. In the US, we had 3 different color packages, red, white, and blue, and each mint was color-coded to 3 words: on red, the white, house blue. So when a service employee cleaned the room, 3 mints were laid out on each pillow with those words in order: on the house. Super positive reaction. And we could arrange colors for any country's flag in the world. And the words are the same, could easily change languages. Take France. While the flag colors were the same, the 3 segments could read the French equivalent: Europe, Asia. And after Hilton showed remarkable interest mid-August, I scheduled a meeting with the Trump Organization for late September, which I heard that Donald himself had placed at the top of his list. After 9/11, the hospitality industry tanked. So I began a new career as an assistant VP to a COO of a Fortune 500 in Chicago, listed number 9 by Forbes. But this position only lessened the odds of my ever getting close to Trump. 3 years of the grind passed before another amazing project fell into my lap. And I didn't want to just meet Donald Trump. I wanted to impress him. I first met Donald Trump. I had met Donald Trump a handful of times. He signed a book or something like a kitchen magnet with his face embossed, nodded his head, and off one went as if touched by an angel at this or that guest appearance. He even answered a letter I wrote him after reading The Art of the Deal in 10th grade, though I doubt very much he'd remember. I knew his letter by heart, though. Dear Bo, unusual name. You should think about changing it to something more acceptable if you really want to make it in this world. Anyhow, it's great to hear you love my book. I have a feeling you'll go far, especially if you change that name. Truly, Donald J. Trump. I still have it framed above my desk at the office, and I guess he was right. His analysis inspired me to work all that much harder without changing my name. The next time I almost had the future president's ear was in the summer of 2005. It was a fantastic opportunity that came along I couldn't refuse. I cashed in my corporate perch at the ripe young age of 25 and put in with a thriving entrepreneur by the name of Carl Frandy in Sarasota, Florida. The product was Can't Lose. 15 years ago, climate change was not the dire be-end-all that it has manifested into today. Our product was an applicably suited alternative hypothesis to the whole idea of climate change. The product was an impulse consumer liquid called 1 Degree. That was it. 1 degree. And what 1 degree did was lower the body temperature 1 degree from 98.6 to 97.6 or thereabouts. And the ripple effect for this was plain and simple. If 5 billion people ingested a 1 degree per diem, the Earth's surface temperature would be lowered by 5 billion degrees. And that would only benefit all the inhabitants of our third rock from the sun. Sure, there were detractors, but for every jeer of snake oil, there were 4 changed my life. All right, so let's bring everybody back. Here we come. We'll put on the off the mute so I can hear the applause. And applause for everybody. We love Donald Trump too. We love to see him leave office come November 6th or sooner. I wouldn't argue if it was sooner. Anybody?
Word.
Any arguments?
I would not complain.
I'm all for it.
So we had a pretty good launch. I enjoyed myself very much. I hope all of you guys did. It was a pleasure to see you. We'll see the 3 guys come the 6th of May, right?
Yep, that's right.
We'll be over here at Powerhouse Arena, except we'll all be in the same place. But we will be at Powerhouse Arena, and they're kind of still hosting for us. So that's pretty nice.
It's coincidentally what I call my office anyway.
Yeah. Has anybody ever performed there or did an event at Powerhouse?
No.
It's a really nice place, and they, they're very well respected. So, it's a shame that we're not really going to be there, but they're still involved. So that's really nice of them to, use their list and all of that for us. And we're going to be adding 3 other contributors: S.J. Rosen, Allison Galen, and Chris Chambers. He's going to come all the way up to Washington D.C. through the internet cable, so through the wave, through the thing.
The internet tubes.
Right. So we had Mary Anna Evans come all the way from Oklahoma and join us, and it was nice to hear your story. And who knows who that I love her woman, and her the wife is just an incredible person, and they're very similarly connected to Angel's squirrels. They're very similar. That's why I liked having a lot of that Russian stuff right in the beginning, so we don't forget the Russian stuff that just hit us. I personally think Trump was murdered by the Italian mafia after the casino debacles back in 1993, and they put in a Russian asset then as Trump, and his wife's definitely Russian. That's where we live now in America. When we walk out of this pandemic quarantine, who knows? We might see a Russian flag flying out there. We're going to have to do a lot of patriot work to get out of there. But in the interim, we do have some patriotism going on with the faking of the president. Look at that! Look at it. We got the blade, the top row. Yay! So, guys. It was truly a pleasure. Thank you, and I'll see you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Angel, Alex, and Adam, I will see you in a week and a half. And Marianne, it's such a pleasure to get to meet you face to face. And when this is all over with, we can all get together somewhere, anywhere but a beach in Florida. We'll be under quarantine by that time, right?
Right.
Okay, so now we can sing our closing song, which would be "Bye Bye Trump, Bye Bye 45, Hello 46." All right.
Very lovely.
Thanks so much. This was a
wonderful singing voice.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
Thank everyone for showing up. We're still live. Damn.